I never thought I'd hear from her again after everything we went through. No, after everything she did, it felt like the silence between us had hardened into something permanent, like concrete. But then, 5 years later, my phone rang on a rainy Wednesday morning. I was halfway through my second cup of black coffee, staring out the kitchen window at the same backyard fence I'd been meaning to fix for years. The number wasn't saved, but something in me knew, just knew. And when I answered, all she said was my name. Just that. Ellis. And my hands started shaking. To be honest, I didn't think I had anything left to feel about Lorna. I thought I'd emptied myself of her a long time ago, like wringing out the last drop of water from a cloth. I told myself I'd moved on, that I'd healed. But hearing her voice, it was like a key had turned in some door I didn't even know was still locked. I didn't respond right away. Couldn't. My mind went quiet, but not peaceful. More like the kind of quiet before a storm hits. My heart was loud, though. Loud enough I thought she might hear it through the phone. She said my name again, softer this time, almost like an apology. I finally managed to say one word. Why? And just like that, the weight of 5 years came crashing back. It's strange. You can build a new life, new routines, a new grocery store, a new job, even learn to smile at strangers again. And yet, one voice from the past can make it all feel like it's built on sand. I had built a quiet life. I didn't date much after her. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to open doors I might not be ready to walk through. My friends would ask, and I'd just smile and change the subject. I'd say I was happy on my own. Maybe that was true. Maybe I just needed it to be. But back then, before the silence, there were moments with Lorna that felt like sunlight on skin. You know what I mean? Those small, ordinary seconds where everything aligns. Sunday mornings with her feet on my lap. The sound of her laugh when she found something stupidly funny. The way she always covered her mouth when she yawned like it was a secret. I thought we were building something. I truly did. Until the distance crept in. It didn't start with fights. It started with longer silences. Missed calls. That moment when you look at someone and realize they're smiling more at their phone than at you. I didn't catch on quickly. Maybe I didn't want to. You have to understand. I loved her in that quiet, slow-burning way that convinces you it can survive anything. I didn't question her late nights, her business trips, her changed passwords. I made excuses for her before she even gave any. I told myself it was just stress, just a phase, just life. But the truth doesn't need to shout. It whispers, and eventually, it stops waiting to be heard. I still remember the moment I knew. It wasn't anything dramatic. No lipstick on a collar. No texts accidentally sent to me. It was a dinner she forgot we'd planned. I'd made her favorite. Lemon pepper salmon, extra dill, just the way she liked it. I lit a candle. I don't know why. I think I needed something soft to hold on to. But she never showed. No message, no call. I waited for 2 hours. The salmon going cold on the table, the candle burning down to nothing. She came home just past midnight, smelling like someone else's cologne. She didn't lie. Not that night. That was the worst part. She didn't even try. She just looked at me with these tired, sad eyes and said, "I didn't mean for it to happen." And that was it. No explanation, no names, no promises to fix it. She left 2 weeks later. I helped her pack. That's the kind of man I was then. I carried her suitcase down the stairs. I hugged her goodbye, and then I disappeared from my own life for a while. I don't remember much from that first year. Just a lot of quiet, too much thinking, too many mornings where I woke up and forgot she was gone, only to remember as the coffee brewed. I moved cities, took a job that didn't ask much of me, made small talk with coworkers, and pretended everything was fine. You'd be surprised how easy it is to hide an entire heartbreak behind a polite smile and a busy calendar. But now she's back, and she didn't call to apologize. She didn't call to ask how I'd been. She called because she needs something. What it is, I don't know yet. She wouldn't say, only that it's important, that it's about something I deserve to know. Part of me wanted to hang up. Another part wanted to scream, but the part that answered, it just stood there frozen in my kitchen listening to her breathe. And then quietly, I said, "Okay." Not because I forgave her, not because I missed her, but because some stories refused to stay buried. And deep down, I knew hers wasn't over. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat at the kitchen table long after the sun had gone down, the untouched cup of tea growing colder by the hour. I kept replaying her voice in my head like it was some kind of code I was supposed to crack. It had a texture I couldn't place, strained but not broken, like she was holding something back. Or maybe it was me imagining things again. I had a habit of doing that back when we were married, filling in the gaps for her when she didn't give me answers. And now, 5 years later, I was falling into the same rhythm like muscle memory. She'd asked to meet, said it had to be in person, somewhere public but quiet. We agreed on a little place outside of town, an old greenhouse-turned-cafe that sat on a ridge overlooking the woods. It used to be our spot back when things still felt good between us. Lorna liked how the sunlight poured through the glass ceiling in the mornings, and I liked that she liked it. Funny how that works. You start liking things not because they're yours, but because they make someone you love light up. I almost didn't go. There were a dozen reasons not to. I'd moved on or thought I had. I didn't owe her anything. I didn't need closure. But when you spend enough years living in silence, part of you starts craving the sound of unfinished sentences. You want to know where they would have gone. So I went. I got there early. The place looked exactly the same. Wooden tables tucked between old planters, quiet chatter floating from the corner. The woman behind the counter was new, though. I ordered a coffee and took the seat closest to the window, where I could see anyone coming up the gravel path. And I waited. And then there she was, Lorna. Her hair was shorter. She walked slower than I remembered, shoulders tense, like the air itself was heavier around her. She was wearing one of those loose, earth-tone coats she always liked. Soft fabric, big buttons. I used to tease her about how she always dressed like autumn, no matter the season. She spotted me and paused for a second, like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to keep going. Then she came in. The door jingled, and my chest tightened. She didn't say anything right away, just sat across from me, folded her hands neatly on the table like it was a job interview, not a moment 5 years in the making. Her eyes searched my face, not for affection. I don't think she expected that, but for something gentler than what she deserved. I didn't give her anything. Not yet. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said eventually, her voice thin and brittle like old paper. You didn't leave me much choice, I replied. You said it was something I deserved to know. She looked down, bit her lip. It is. It's just, I don't know how to start. I didn't rush her. I didn't want the version that was rehearsed. I wanted the truth. The kind that doesn't come out smooth, the kind that stumbles. She finally looked at me again, and what she said next landed like a stone in the center of a still lake. I didn't leave because I fell in love with someone else, she said. I left because I was already gone inside. The words didn't sting like I thought they would. They just made me feel tired, like someone had finally turned off a song that had been playing too long in the background. I know I hurt you, she continued, and nothing I say can undo that. But I need you to understand it wasn't about him. It was about me. I was scared of everything, of who I was becoming, of who we were becoming. I didn't interrupt. There was no point. There's more, she said after a pause. But it's not something I can tell you here, not with people around. I need more than a conversation, Ellis. I need a day. Just one, please. I stared out the window. The trees were turning gold, leaves drifting down like they always did this time of year. The last time we came here together, I remember her pressing her hand against the glass and whispering, "Do you think we'll still be coming here when we're old?" I remember saying, "I don't see why not." She had smiled, but now I wonder if she already knew the answer back then. I looked back at her. Her face had changed in subtle ways. Tiny lines around her eyes, a weariness I didn't recognize. But there was something else, too, something that felt like regret. "I'll give you the day," I said. "But after that, no more ghosts." She nodded. "No more ghosts." She reached for her coat, stood slowly, and added one more sentence before she left. "There's something I need to return to you." And then she was gone again, this time by choice, and somehow that made it harder. The next morning I didn't rush. I let the kettle whistle longer than it needed to, stared at the steam curling upward until it disappeared. My breath felt like it followed the same path. Rising, fading, gone. I wasn't anxious, not in the way I expected. There was a stillness in me. Not peace, just quiet. That kind of quiet where your emotions haven't caught up yet. Like your soul is driving a few miles behind your body. She'd asked for one day. Not to relive anything, not to fix it, but to share something she said I deserved. And when someone uses that word, deserve, it hangs in the air like a scent you can't name. It makes you wonder what's been withheld. We agreed to meet at a park we used to visit once every autumn. A place just outside Elk Haven where the trees form a kind of tunnel, branches interlocking above the gravel path like fingers holding secrets. I hadn't been back since the divorce. Honestly, I'd avoided anything that carried her fingerprint. Restaurants, roads, certain colors, even a particular song that once played while we drove in silence for an hour, holding hands and saying nothing. The past has its own geography. It's not just in memory. It's in street corners, soup flavors, old jackets that still carry their scent. You learn to navigate around it like broken glass. But that morning I didn't avoid. I walked straight into it. She was already there, not on the bench where we used to sit, but standing a little off the path, facing away, looking at the trees. I watched her for a moment. She wasn't moving, like part of her was waiting to be given permission to exist in that place again. She held a small box in both hands, carefully, like it was fragile. She didn't turn when I approached. "This is going to sound dramatic," she said quietly, "but everything that mattered is in this box." I said nothing. She handed it to me. It wasn't heavy, but my hand shook anyway. The box was plain wooden with a brass clasp. Old, maybe antique. She must have kept it all this time. When I opened it, I expected something symbolic. A photo maybe, or a letter written during the final days of our marriage. What I didn't expect was a folded piece of blue construction paper, faded and torn at the edges. It was a card, a child's card. Inside was a stick figure drawing. 2 adults, 1 child, a dog. And beneath it, in childish handwriting, "Thank you for picking me. I love my new family." I stared at it for a long time before looking up. Lorna was crying. Not weeping, not dramatic, just one tear, carefully sliding down her cheek like even her sadness had grown older, slower. "Her name was Mia," she said. "I met her during a client retreat, foster home in the next town over. I volunteered one afternoon to help with crafts. She attached herself to me, like, instantly. I waited. My hands clenched the box tighter. She was 8. Smart. Too smart. She asked me why grown-ups lie about staying. I didn't know what to say. I told her I never lie. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Then prove it." She looked at me now, direct. Finally, I started visiting her. Every week. I didn't tell anyone. Not you, not even my sister. I didn't know what I was doing. I just felt like she needed someone, and I needed someone too. "And the man?" I asked. My voice was low, almost mechanical. She nodded. "He was her caseworker." It hit differently than I expected. Not like a punch. More like that sound you hear when you drop a glass in the sink and it doesn't shatter. It just rolls around awkwardly. Surviving. I wasn't in love with him. I was trying to be needed by someone. Anyone. Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe if I left quietly, if I didn't make it messy, if I just disappeared, you could rebuild faster. You were always stronger than me. You saw the world like it could be understood. I was always guessing." There it was again, that rewriting of history, that subtle shift in perspective that made me out to be the stable one, the fixed point. But what she never understood was how exhausting that role had been. I wasn't strong. I was just good at hiding how lost I really was. "I didn't come here to ask for forgiveness," she continued. "I came because Mia is gone now. Cancer 2 years ago. And I've been carrying this box since her funeral. I didn't know who else it belonged to until now." The silence stretched again. Then I did something I didn't plan. I sat beside her. Not close, not warm, just beside 2 people looking out at the leaves falling like memories. And for the first time in 5 years, I didn't feel like I had to respond. I just had to be there. Sometimes presence is the only answer you can give to grief that no longer has words. And as the wind picked up, scattering golden leaves across the path, she whispered almost to herself, "I never stopped hoping you'd still be kind." I didn't say it out loud, but the answer echoed quietly in my chest. Kindness isn't something you owe. It's something you choose. And I didn't know what came next, or whether I wanted anything to. But for that single moment I chose stillness. Just long enough to let the weight settle where it belonged. I didn't tell anyone about that day. Not my sister, not my coworkers, not even the neighbor I sometimes talk to when we're both outside watering plants at the same time. It wasn't out of shame. It was something else. Like the story wasn't ready to be shared. Not even with the mirror. That night when I got home, I placed the box on the kitchen counter and didn't open it again. I didn't need to. It had already done its work. The strange what you remember after so much forgetting. I sat down at the table, rested my hands flat on the grain of the wood, and just stayed there. And somewhere between the hum of the refrigerator and the tick of the hallway clock, a memory came back. Not one I'd have chosen. Not a special day, just a Tuesday. She had made toast. The house smelled like cinnamon. And I told her I couldn't join her for breakfast because of a meeting. She didn't argue. She didn't complain. She just sat at the table with her cinnamon toast and said, "Sometimes I wish I mattered more than your time." At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. I smiled and kissed her forehead and said something like, "You know that's not true. But now I'm not sure I ever proved it." It's easy to love people in the loud ways. Birthdays, anniversaries, those carefully curated words we save for apologies and celebrations. But the quiet spaces, that's where it lives. That's where it grows. Or dies. I think maybe she died a little that day. Just a little. The kind of small death people carry with them quietly, like lint in a pocket. Funny how the little moments returned before the big ones. I didn't sleep that night either. I walked the house in slow circles like it would somehow offer me answers. Every room had her imprint. Not her presence, just the echo of it. Like she had left behind a version of herself only I could see. Not the real Lorna, just shadows and familiar shapes. I tried to distract myself, rearrange the bookshelf by color, wash the dishes by hand even though I have a perfectly good dishwasher, open the freezer just to feel something cold. And then, just before dawn, I took the card out of the box. The drawing was still there. The 3 stick figures holding hands. One of them had little curls drawn on top, probably Lorna. The dog had a pink collar. I don't know why I cried. Maybe because I realized someone had called us a family when we weren't one. Or maybe because I never got the chance to meet the little girl who gave Lorna something I never could. But the tears came slowly. No sobbing, just water finding its way out of a crack. They say grief has no schedule. I think it also doesn't care about sequence. Sometimes you mourn things years before they're gone. Sometimes years after. And sometimes you don't know what you're mourning, only that it's heavier than it should be. At sunrise, I walked outside. The air was brittle and the grass was damp. I stood barefoot in the yard, watching the sky change like it was painting itself slowly back into existence. And all I kept hearing was that sentence. "I never stopped hoping you'd still be kind." It echoed not like a plea, but like a mirror. And I stood there whispering the words back into the wind. Not for her, but for me. Then let me be. Because maybe kindness isn't just a gift. Maybe it's an anchor. And I wasn't ready to drift again. I didn't wake up. I just stopped being asleep. Somewhere between night and morning, I opened my eyes and didn't know what day it was. My room was dim, colorless, like it was waiting to be remembered before it returned to normal. I blinked at the ceiling. And then I blinked again. Not because my eyes were dry, but because I felt like I had just missed something. Like I'd slept through something important. I sat up slowly, not with purpose, but with instinct. I moved toward the kitchen like muscle memory, still barefoot, still unsure what was real. There was a smell I couldn't place. Not unpleasant, not familiar. Something like warm dust and forgotten paper. It followed me to the hallway. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the framed photo I never took down. The one of me and Lorna on the ferry, wind in our faces, both squinting into the sun. She wasn't smiling in it. I was, but not the kind of smile I trust now. It was the kind you wear when someone says, "Say cheese," and you want to be what they expect. I used to believe that picture was proof of happiness. Now I'm not so sure. I passed the mirror but didn't look at it. There are days when I don't want to see what my face has become. Not older. I'm used to that. It's the other thing. The quietness behind the eyes. The way they never really rest. Like they're always bracing for a sound that hasn't come yet. I walked outside, coffee in hand, sat on the steps. No one else was awake yet. The world looked soft, unfinished. A painter that hadn't gotten to the sky yet. I took out the card again. This time I noticed something I hadn't before. On the back, tiny letters, smudged pencil, almost invisible unless the light hit it right. It read, "She cried after you left. She kept asking if it was her fault." It wasn't Lorna's handwriting. It was a child's. And in that moment, something inside me folded. I didn't even remember meeting Mia. I hadn't. She knew about me, or at least the idea of me, but I had been erased from her life before I ever entered it. Still, she had drawn me. She had made me part of something I was never given the chance to hold. I had never fathered a child. I had never lost one. But suddenly, I was grieving like both were true. I buried my face in my hands and tried to breathe through the ache. Not because I missed Lorna. Not even because of the betrayal anymore, but because I had finally found the wound I never named. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just untethered. Like I'd lived through an entire chapter without realizing I was supposed to be in it. How do you mourn a version of your life you never got to live? How do you forgive someone for withholding it from you? Not out of cruelty, but out of cowardice. I don't know. All I know is this. I wasn't awake yesterday. Not truly. And today I am. And now I have to carry the weight of both. The past is a room I thought I'd locked. But all this time, someone small and bright had been sitting quietly behind the door, waiting for me to hear her. I hear her now, and everything is different. There's a silence that doesn't come from outside. The kind that grows in your chest when even your thoughts forget how to finish themselves. That's what the day feels like. I left the house without knowing where I was going. I had the keys in my hand, the card in my pocket, and nothing else that felt useful. The sky was colorless, not gray, just undecided. It reminded me of the tone Lorna used when she wanted to start an argument without admitting she was angry. That strange middle ground where you don't know whether to speak or walk away. The weather felt like that. I drove without music. I used to fill every space with sound, as if silence would let the grief sneak back in. But today, I let the air hang hollow, listening to the tires hum against the road like they were trying to form words they couldn't quite pronounce. I ended up back in the place I used to avoid most. The bookstore we used to visit on rainy days. It was still there. Same crooked sign. Same dusty front window with a barely working neon, open sign flickering in the corner, like it couldn't decide if it wanted to be alive. I walked in and everything smelled like old wood and softened pages. No one greeted me. Perfect. The floor creaked in all the same places. My body moved on instinct, turned left, past the psychology section, took 3 steps, and reached the bench near the biographies. That's where Lorna once sat for almost an hour, reading about an artist who painted nothing but circles. She said it calmed her. I said I didn't understand it. She didn't answer. Now I understood it. I picked up a random book. I didn't read the title. I didn't open it. I just held it. I think I needed to feel something with weight, even if it wasn't mine. Across the aisle, there was a man with his son, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The boy was tracing the spines of the books like they were sacred, asking questions his dad mostly ignored. "Why don't books talk?" the boy asked. The father said, "They do, just not out loud." The boy looked confused. I wasn't. That sentence stayed with me long after they left. I walked out an hour later, still holding the card in my pocket like a match I was afraid to strike. I sat in the car and turned the engine on, then off again. There was nowhere left to go, so I went home. When I got there, the air in the house felt unfamiliar, like someone had opened all the windows and let the ghosts out. I stood in the living room and stared at the blank wall where our wedding photo used to hang. I had removed it years ago, but the shadow of it, the shape the light hadn't touched for so long, was still there barely, but there. A kind of outline. That's what she had become. Not a person, not even a memory, just an outline around everything that still didn't make sense. I poured a glass of water, left it on the counter, didn't drink it. I stood by the window and watched the neighbor's kid draw shapes in the fogged glass of their car window. Circles. Only circles. I closed my eyes, and I swear I heard her voice, but it wasn't from the past. It was closer. It was now. Today began with nothing. Not a sound, not a call, not a letter slipped under the door. Just mourning, waiting politely. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. Not because I was tired, but because I had the feeling I was forgetting something. You know that weight? Like a dream that's still on your shoulders but refuses to translate. I stared at the floor, toes touching the same carpet that's been here for years, and realized I couldn't remember the last time I noticed its color. I'm sure it was beige when I moved in. It looks gray now. I made tea, poured the water too fast. It splashed onto my hand, but I didn't flinch. I just watched it slide off, drip onto the counter, and disappear. Maybe pain needs purpose to matter. I didn't open the curtains. Instead, I walked the house again. It's become a habit. Not cleaning, not searching, just moving from room to room as if I'm checking for ghosts I know aren't there. The hallway light flickered once, then stopped. I didn't fix it. I opened the drawer near the hallway and found a photo I didn't remember keeping. It was tucked between two instruction manuals for appliances I no longer own. The photo was bent, edges frayed. It was us, me and Lorna, but not the usual kind. Not posed, not smiling, just a candid moment. She was looking away, half laughing. I was squinting at something behind the camera. There was no timestamp, just the feeling that whoever we were in that moment, we didn't know what was coming. I stared at it for almost an hour and then I placed it in the refrigerator. Don't ask me why. Felt right. Felt like the only safe place. Some grief has no logic. Later, I found myself sitting in the hallway closet. Door cracked open, knees tucked up. I hadn't done that since childhood. Hiding in quiet corners when the world felt too wide. I think I just wanted to be somewhere without decisions. No clocks, no sounds, just stillness. The coat smelled like dust and faint perfume. Probably hers. Probably not. I stayed there until the light outside shifted. I kept expecting a knock. Nothing came. Eventually, I opened the card again. Mia's drawing hadn't changed. Still those stick figures. Still the pink collar on the dog. But this time, I noticed something in the corner. Something I'd missed entirely. A small, faint shape. An open door. Just behind the figures, sketched in soft pencil, was what looked like a doorway. Not a house, not a room, just a threshold. Empty. I don't know what she meant, but maybe she did. Maybe she saw what none of us could. That some families aren't broken. They're simply unfinished. That night, I didn't sleep in my bed. I lay on the floor near the front door, listening for what I still don't know. Morning came without hesitation. No heaviness in the air. No strange dreams dissolving behind my eyes. Just light, clean, steady, slipping across the floorboards like it belonged there. I stood by the window longer than usual, and for the first time in years, I wasn't trying to remember something. I wasn't measuring the air for old echoes. I was simply there with the coffee warming my hands and the silence not feeling like a threat anymore. It had been 3 days since Lorna left that cafe. We hadn't spoken since. No more calls, no more surprise visits. She had passed through like a quiet season, and I didn't chase the wind after it turned. That morning, I opened the refrigerator, and there was the photo still there next to the milk. A part of me smiled at the absurdity of it. Another part just felt relieved. It was still real. I held it in my hand and studied it again, this time without looking for what was missing. For the first time, I noticed how Lorna's eyes weren't tired in that photo, how my posture was intense. We were both in the middle of something soft, something unremarkable, and maybe that was the best it ever was and the most it needed to be. I placed the photo inside the kitchen drawer, Not hidden, just kept. Later that day, I walked down to the park. Not the one with meaning, just a new one. Somewhere clean of memory. The grass was damp, but green. A little girl zipped past me on a pink scooter, yelling something about dinosaurs. Her mother laughed behind her. It was a quiet kind of joy, the kind that doesn't ask for attention. And something in me exhaled. I sat on a bench near the pond. No phone, no card in my pocket. No questions, just the feeling that I had finally arrived in the same time as my body. The sun moved higher. Shadows changed their shapes. I closed my eyes and listened. Not for Lorna, not for Mia, not for what-ifs or regrets. I listened for me. And there I was, right where I had been the whole time, whole after all.